Hi, everybody. Sorry about the little technical challenges there. Ooh, we have a nice gathering, but I could already feel you gathering as I was sitting here, number one, clearing my chakras so I could be the clearest possible instrument for my guides to talk through me today, to talk to you. I wonder if we'll see any orbs tonight flying around behind me. We saw some in the last one, and I've had some amazing incidents with light shows in my readings lately. But regardless of that, I know Spirits is here, and Sanaya, my guides, are going to be co-hosting with me tonight. So you'll be hearing from them when we do our Q&A sessions, and also when I channel them later this evening. So first of all, thank you to Bev and Lynette for greeting everybody so beautifully. I love seeing many of you putting in the chat box where you're joining us from. And if I could end a sentence with a preposition, my father, if he were here in physical form, would tap me on the hand and say, "Don't do that, Susie." Oh, it's so good to feel all of your energy. We have such a great evening ahead. Let me see. Before we do talk about what we're going to talk about, I want to talk about some upcoming events just to share some excitement with you. Next week, I leave for London to speak to some of you who are even tuned in tonight. We have a very nice group of people gathered from... Bev, did you happen to count the number of countries who are represented? You just said, look at this list, but I never counted it. You're muted.
I've got to unmute. You know, I didn't count them, but I'm thinking at least 20 was there.
Yeah, I was thinking it was about 20 as well. Wow, really, really cool. So I wish everybody could meet me somewhere, but we're going to have a good time. Wanted to just tell people that they're still taking signups for the year-long medium certificate course that the Shift Network is offering. And I know that that is a big ticket item, but wow, what the students will get from that. And I've heard from several of you that you signed up for it, and it's quite an opportunity for those who sign up, because it really holds your feet to the fire for a full year, almost weekly classes and good teaching and doing lots of readings. So congrats to those who have signed up, and there's still time to look into that. Bev, was my link somewhere on the website for that, for information?
You know, I don't think we have it. We'll get it on our events calendar.
Yeah, and on the email that goes out to give the link to this program. Already we're getting signups for my program at the Omega Institute next summer. And just all kinds of things coming up. We have the Global Oneness Summit, October 21st, with the humanities team. A really big deal. A beautiful goal to help us all understand how connected we all are. So tonight, I think it's going to be pretty much like all the other months, which is pretty awesome, right? We're going to start off with evidence from some of my recent readings, and my friends, it really does just keep getting better and better. I didn't even have notes about this one because it just happened, but my latest reading that I did, I realized that my dream came true. I was able to describe the spirit who came through and what he was wearing. And then his mom held up a photograph, and he had been showing me the photograph. And my guides even said it's much easier for them to show you a photo than to generate their appearance for you. So for those of you who are working as mediums, if you have wanted to see what they look like but don't see them, why don't you ask them to show you a photo and see if that opens your third eye. So that's a big step for me, who has always said I'm like the blind medium. I guess I've worked long enough on feeling the spirits and sharing their evidence, and now we're going to move forward and know that I'll see them ever more clearly. So just a little extra piece to show that it's really true. We never stop growing in this field, and I'm just thrilled, and I wanted to give all of you hope as well. After a dozen years of doing readings and having a very clear connection, there's no doubt who we're connecting with. It just has always been very important to me to see what they look like. So we'll see how that unfolds. I'll keep you posted. So we are going to share some evidence, and that is, to me, that's the crux of all of this. It's what shows that the awakened way of living is an actuality, that we're not only human. If we're getting this kind of evidence in very creative, interactive interactions with people, then we really are part of one big web connecting all that is and the creative healing force of the universe absolutely is love, because we feel it so clearly in these sessions and in my readings. We had a dinner party here at our house for neighbors on each side of us, and this is a new summer house for us, so we were getting to know each other, and it was just very interesting when the mediumship topic comes up. What do you do? And that comes up a lot in Q&As. How do I discuss this with people who aren't really open to it? And you just feel your way through it. And both couples are very strong in their church. And in the past, I would have been really hesitant to even go into mediumship. And this time it was just, hey, I'm putting it out there. This is who I am. This is what I do. So model my behavior if that feels good to you. And we even gave them my card at the end of the evening. They wanted to look into it a little more. It wasn't like, can we skip dessert and just leave? They were very open to it, which was lovely, lovely, lovely. I feel the whole world is opening more to the fact that communication with those who have passed is not wrong. It's not of the devil. It is helpful and healing, and shows that we are so much more than these bodies. And the best part of all, that we'll see our loved ones again, because love never dies. Yay. So then I have a lot of sharing to do from Spirit, including the story that was in 2 of my emails that went out of how I was very human last month and totally lost it. But the only reason I'm sharing it, well, there are 2 reasons. Number 1, to show that I'm human, so that you all don't put me on some pedestal, okay? And number 2 is because of the spiritual lessons that came from it. Bunches of them. You'll see. This one's going to take a while tonight because it is so rich. So we're going to mine it for all it's worth. And there are a lot of little wows knitted into that whole story. So before we go any further, let's all come together as a group. Welcome to those of you who've never been to the monthly connection before. I see Lynette and Bev. I can see them on screen and they're settling back in. Oh yeah, time for the invocation. But I hope you can feel the energy if you're new to this. Those who have come back year after year, in fact, is because this is a love fest. And the energy that comes through, especially when I'm just merged with my guides, is palpable. And in fact, almost every time I do these sessions, I get such a fullness in my head. It's almost like my nasal passages swell up and I almost get a headache. And I said to the team tonight, maybe we can bypass that part of the monthly connection and just let it flow. But I hope that if you feel any pressure, that's higher energy, and you can just say, back it off a little to your spirit guides and they'll help you with that. But I say, bring it on, as long as it's not painful, right? May my lessons be as painless as possible. We do need to do the invocation because I'm feeling a little high. I'm talking really fast thanks to all of your energy. And I wasn't like this 15 minutes ago. So let's all settle into this by letting your eyes close. Let's all take a nice deep breath together, okay? Exhale longer than you inhaled. Nice. Move your awareness out of the head and into the heart. Just feel who you are at the most basic level. Just peace, silence, just being here now and aware of it. Just set your story aside for a minute and just feel that this part of you that never changes is the same in every one of us gathered here right now. And feel gratitude for being here with us. Even if you're not here live, you're part of this group. If you're watching the recording later, and if you watch it over and over, you can re-engender this energy. So just soak it up for a moment, and now turn up your light, send it outward, connecting all of us with love in our shared desire to turn up our lights, to make a difference in this world, and to learn how to connect with the other worlds. We thank our guides for being with us and helping us to hear exactly what we need to hear as we come together in love. And so it is. Very nice. All right. Ooh, that slowed things down a bit. Very good. All right. So let me just start. Look at all these notes I have. Just 1 month worth of notes to share with you. So, I have some slides to go along with some of these. You're going to love it. So I was doing a reading for a shining light mom. That means a mother with a child across the veil. And you know why you're shining lights? It's because your child is your bright light across the veil. And even when they pass, if you feel like your light went out, it can never go out completely. And as you come to know that they're still with you, your light turns up brighter and brighter, and you become a light for other parents who are new to this journey. So welcome to our Shining Light parents who are with us for this evening. I was doing a reading just in this past month, and her son came through beautifully. And I could feel and express to her his personality, which is always my anchor. If I can't feel the personality, I just say I don't have him. But he showed me he was a really hard worker. You give him any job, he's going to do it. He showed me what strong integrity he had, how loving he was. And then he showed me that he had a very deliberate walk. I thought that was very interesting. I said earlier that I don't see spirits. It's their facial features that I, until now, had not been able to see. But I see charades and gestures, and he very clearly showed me a kind of lumbering walk, and I could tell he was a big guy. And she said, oh, yeah, that describes him exactly. And then into my mind's eye popped an image of a young man named David across the veil, who I knew it had been several years since I brought him through. But I recognized him right away because I had shared his story in one of these monthly connection sessions. And I said, this guy, David, I remember, even though it was years ago, walked the same way, just a quiet, kind of shy, unassuming guy. And the mom said, yes, that's him exactly. Well, I want to share with you that photo. Let me bring it up right now. This is, I'll bring up this one. This is a picture of David. His mom is Claudia, and she didn't mind that I share his picture again. And the fun part about this is when David came through to me and I found out it was 4 years earlier, I was looking at his picture that his mom emailed to me after the reading, and a song started playing on my phone on Pandora that I had never heard before, and I liked it. So I looked down to see what the name of it was so I could buy it. And the next slide here is going to show you my shock. Look at the side portrait on the screenshot of this picture. Look at the way, don't look at the main figure that's standing up. Look inside him at the torso in that CD there cover that says Two Worlds. I know that I can see Lynette and Bev shaking their heads like they can't believe it. They can see it. And does that not look just like David? Isn't that cool? So let me see. I'll come out of the screen share for now. What's especially cool about this and what made it noteworthy tonight, many times spirits across the veil will come through when there's a similarity. But in this case, it had been 4 years since I did the reading. And that night, David's mom, Claudia, emailed me. I mean, out of the blue, right? Let me see why it was she emailed me. Oh, she was just, my screen is fluttering. Are you guys seeing that? No? Oh, it's a spirit thing I was just told. It's flashing. I wonder if it'll come out on the recording. Wow, who's doing that? Could be David. Oh, I feel like it is. I got goosebumps. We'll have to make sure Claudia sees this. Well, anyway, she was just talking about the reading out of the blue. And I asked Brenda, my guide, how that happened. And she said that how is this? Hang on, I wrote it down. Brenda took credit for it, saying that she saw David's mother preparing to email me. She saw the similarity with David and my client's son, who she was briefing about how to work with me in the reading that was coming up, and popped that image into my head. I know that sounds a little crazy, but there are many things we can't explain in this mediumship world. So I just thought that was totally awesome. And then I asked for a sign. I said, Brenda, what sign are you going to show me to validate that that's really what happened? And she showed me an axe and wood. I seem to recall that David was worked on trees, was a woodcutter. And sure enough, I got that sign within 24 hours. So fun to play the sign game. But let me see now. There was something else cool. Oh, that's it. It's not actually cool. It's a really great teaching point about the reading that I started talking about, not David's reading. In that reading, obviously, I could see him showing me how he walked. I was shown what his personality was like, I started to get symptoms of how he passed. And his mom said, yep, that's accurate. Yep, that symptom is correct. And finally, though, I was a little exasperated because I couldn't tell what had happened. And she said to me, I can't believe you aren't able to tell how my son passed. He's a really strong communicator. And I said to her, if I were able to get it, I would. Let me just keep going a little farther. But I know myself, and this is really important for any of you working as mediums, if you know what your stumbling blocks are, work with them. So I said to his mom, look, I've gotten enough symptoms. You can tell he's here, but I'm going to obsess. I know myself. I'm going to obsess about how he passed. I need you to tell me, and then we'll move on. So when she told me, I was really stunned. It was a murder case, and it was pretty, well, what murder case is not tragic, but the circumstances were some that I never could have imagined. And that's my personal challenge so far as a medium. If I can't imagine what people can do to each other, it's very challenging for them across the veil to get it through to me. So the beautiful part is once that got out of the way, then her son was able to communicate the main messages that he had for his mom. And the beautiful part was at the end of the reading, she said, he addressed 3 major concerns I had about his passing. He answered all 3 of them for me. So I love that once I got myself out of the way, she got exactly what he needed, and he was able to communicate it to his mom. So that's how it works. And I hope you picked up some pointers on that, everybody, especially for those of you who are sitters. You know, I know that young man was trying to get it through to me, but it wasn't happening. But the other evidence was there. All righty. Okay. And about the sign game, I just want to go into that again. I'm going to go out. My screen keeps flashing. You guys can't see it, but I'm going to share screen one more time here, and I'm hoping that makes it stop. Okay. Little gremlins. All right. So the sign game is simply when you say to your loved one, I really know you're here. I trust this. Or even if you don't trust it, either way, it works. What sign will you give me to let me know that this connection is real? And the first thing that pops into your awareness, it could be a visual, an image, or it could be something that you hear, a thought that you hear. Go with that and just know that they will show it to you in beautiful, magical ways within a few days. And then we celebrate that. All righty. So speaking of the sign game, I have a shining light mom named Christine across the veil who I got together with for dinner recently while we were traveling around the United States. And she shared a beautiful story about connecting with her son across the veil. And she had learned from me to play the sign game. And she asked him, I believe his name is Connor. Hang on a second. I want to honor him and get his name right. Yep, it's Connor. So she said, Connor, what sign are you going to give me to validate that this is really you? I know I feel you, but I want to play the game. And he popped into her mind's eye a golf ball. Now, mom's not a medium, but see, we don't have to be mediums to communicate back and forth with our loved ones. We're all souls. She goes to get in her sister's car that night, and there on the floorboard, on the floor, on the passenger seat in the car is a golf ball. What you need to understand is her sister doesn't even play golf. Can you imagine the joy she felt seeing that golf ball? I know I can. And she picked it up and she said, why is this in your car? And her sister said, I don't know, I just found it. And just happened to pick it up and throw it in the car, right? So I got the goosebumps. As we celebrate that, I hope that you can see how that works. Her son has X-ray vision from across the veil. It's just the best way to put it in the terms that you would all understand. They see through our world. They see what's in our world. They're part of our world, just a different channel that interpenetrates our own. He knew his mom was going to visit his sister and get in her car. He saw the golf ball. It was absolutely perfect. So get in the habit of asking your loved ones to share those kinds of things with you. What sign are you going to give me? All righty. Speaking of Christine, she told a wonderful story when we got together for dinner. This was a case of her son taking his own life. And for some reason, he left his home and he traveled 5 miles away and left his cat at a marina. I guess he thought somebody would take care of the cat or somebody would pick it up, but he'd had this cat. It was an indoor cat. He'd had it for years. And when he passed, his mother didn't know what happened to the cat. So imagine how pleased she was sometime later to get a call from a veterinarian's office. They said somebody brought in a cat and it had a microchip in it and your name was on the chip. Will you come get this cat? So they gave her an address where the people were who had turned the cat in. They took it home with them till mom could pick it up. She went to pick up the cat. Guess what? It was at the apartment next door to where her son lived. That cat traveled 5 miles back to the apartment where it lived with her son. It went to the neighbors next door and they found it. 5 miles, even though it had never been outside the apartment. That's an inner guidance system if I ever heard of one. And Christine still has the cat to this day. And I got goosebumps because I know her son knows all about that. Okay. So some of you may have seen this on my Facebook page because I put it on there, but Christine and I, when we got together, where was it? Montana. We got together for dinner. We had never met in person, only doing the reading. And when she heard we were coming through Montana, said, let's get together. And I love to do that with members of our community when we know where you live. And so she brought along another shining light parent with her. So 2 moms with their children across the veil, Christine's son and the other woman's daughter. And I said to her son beforehand, you know, if either one of you want to drop in on me on dinner, that's okay, during dinner. And just then this beautiful rainbow came across the sky right near the campground we were staying. I took a picture of it. I even put it on Facebook. And we got to dinner and I said to Christine, I know that was a sign from your son. He's right here telling me he brought you that rainbow. And I know that sounds crazy to people who are skeptics, right? The main rainbows from one person. Well, I don't. Oh, they said, ask us. Right. One spirit does not create a rainbow, but when they see one, they can draw our attention to it. That's what the guides just said. Okay. So clearly that son grabbed my attention and I could feel him and connected the rainbow with him and his mom. When I shared it with her, she said, oh, don't you remember the rainbow came up in my reading? And I said, no, I do so many readings, I don't remember. And she said, he showed his brother with a rainbow blanket wrapped around him. And that was very significant because his brother is transgender. And it was his way of acknowledging he knows about that from across the veil. Now, as if the rainbow sign wasn't enough, as she told that story, she said, Suzanne, I recently had a reading with Lisa Wilcoxon. She's a dear friend of mine and a Helping Parents Heal approved medium who may even be listening tonight. She said, you won't believe it, but in the reading, Connor came through and he showed his brother with a rainbow blanket wrapped around him. The exact same thing shared with Lisa. And I may have this wrong because all I wrote was showed me his sibling. I don't know if it's a sister now or a brother now, but in either case, we both got it the same way, which was just truly wonderful. Very validating. And this is the part I put on Facebook. So here we are sitting with 2 shining light parents. Ty and I are shining light parents. We're talking about our kids. The other woman's daughter dropped in on us at the table. She's very new to mediumship. And when I shared what her daughter said, she said, yeah, that's her. But she had to look like this, like, I'm not quite sure what to do with this information. And I said, well, we'll just celebrate that your daughter's here. And we're all eating our meal now. Every one of us had our hands occupied with our silverware. So nobody's hand moved out like this. But as we're all 4 at the table, a wine bottle that was off to the side fell onto the floor by itself. It had not been sitting on the edge. It was very firmly on that table and it fell off and made such a racket that everybody in the restaurant turned around to look. And every one of us just looked at each other and said, nobody touched that bottle, right? But in fact, of course they did. Somebody in spirit touched that bottle. And Christine said, that was true Connor, especially because the bottle was empty. He would never have pushed it off the table if it had any wine left in it, which I thought was very good. It reminded me of the reading I had when my Susan came through for the first time, when I took Ty to a medium. We were on the 7th floor of this medium's apartment in downtown Washington, D.C. The window was open only about this much. It was a beautiful day with just nice temperatures, no wind blowing, no storm. And there was a potted plant, a big clay pot, this big, on a coffee table beside us. And as Susan came through, and Ty and I are sobbing because we couldn't believe we were actually connecting with Susan. There was no doubting it. This big potted plant fell off the table. And again, firmly seated on that table, not teetering on the edge, not even near the edge. It fell off. I mean, near it, but not hanging over, to be completely accurate, and shattered. Dirt everywhere. Now, Ty and I are in such a state, we barely even noticed what happened. And I remember the medium just said, "Oh, that's interesting." And I just know it was spirit getting our attention, because it's one of those things, clearly years later, we'll never forget it, because you can't explain it other than like in the movie Ghost, where Patrick Swayze is moving that penny up the wall. That takes a lot of effort on the part of spirit to move physical things. So way to go, Susan. Way to go, Connor, with the wine bottle. I wonder how many of you have your own stories of physical mediumship like that, where spirits move things in our physical world. I love them. So I'm going to show a couple more slides here, and then I need to shut down my slides because it's still flashing on my screen. I don't know if David's doing that or not. But last month, if you were part of our monthly connection, we shared that Beth Passakarnis, the stepmother of Wolf from my book, Wolf's Message, was diagnosed with a very acute case of leukemia. And she has been in the hospital ever since. And we are thrilled to say that she felt the healing energy we sent last month. She's felt spirits around her, but absolutely could feel the energy that everybody sent, and sends so much gratitude. And she is in remission. This is just a wonderful miracle, but not out of the woods yet. So we're going to hold her in our prayers and send energy again this evening, because she's going to have a bone marrow transplant to make sure it doesn't come back. But I know that healing made a difference. But I'm not sure if I shared this last month or not. But if I did, those of you who weren't here, you can celebrate with those of us who've already heard it. But as we were adjusting to the news of Beth, she sent a photo. She first went to the emergency room because her blood tests came back and they were so bad, the doctor said, go to the ER right away. I want to show you a picture as I share the screen of the nurse who took care of Beth in the ER. Hang on a sec. Look at this. This is a tattoo on the arm of the nurse, the first person to respond to take care of Beth. She's the stepmom of Wolf in the book Wolf's Message. Is that a sign that spirit's watching out, or what? So then the thing that I really wanted to share with you after this is that the next day in meditation, I'm sending prayers and energy to Beth and asking spirit to let her know that she's well looked after. And I hear, "Go Tiger." And I wrote it down, and I knew it was one of Beth's parents. I could feel both of them. And so I called Mike, her husband, and I said, please let her know what spirit just said to me this morning. I want to share with you what a beautiful message that was with this next slide. There's a picture of Beth on her bike with mom tattooed on her calf. And look at the rock in the lower right side of that picture. It's a rock with the statement that her mom used to always say to her. Her mom called Beth Tiger. It was her mom's nickname. I don't know any other women whose nickname is Tiger, but there's exactly what Beth keeps at home as a tribute to her mom. And you can see on the right side, the text back from Beth from the hospital. Holy expletive deleted. Good thing I was already lying down. This is a picture, sits on my dresser at home, and a rock I found when I did the cancer charity rides in honor of my mom, who always called me Tiger as a kid. Wow. Can there be any doubt that our loved ones in spirit know about us? Here I am sitting in meditation, sending good vibes, good healing energy to her. And in comes her parents saying, go Tiger. You just got to celebrate it together. So when you feel alone, please know that you're not. Call on your loved ones, know that they gather around you and they're here to support you no matter what. All righty. I occasionally get drop-ins in the middle of the night. If you've read Wolf's message, you know that that's how I got the initial evidence from Wolf. So when a spirit drops in on me, I don't know about any of you who have drop-ins, especially if it's in the middle of the night and I'm very quiet with no other distractions and the room is dark, I feel a wave of energy pass through me. It's like a whoosh, but it's a little bit of dizziness. And if that ever happens to you, don't forget to say, who's here? Who is this? I can't always tell, and it doesn't happen that often, but in this case, immediately in my mind's eye flashed a picture of a dear friend of mine and of Bev's, Anne Lavelle. Anne Lavelle is in my documentary Messages of Hope. She's the woman I did the reading for in that documentary. And it's her son, Chris Lavelle, who produced and directed the Messages of Hope documentary. And she was just smiling and she popped in there to my mind, the little baby daughter that Chris and Gina had within the last year. And that's all I got from her, nothing else. But I know it was the middle of the night and I didn't want to forget. I didn't want to think that it was a dream and let it go away. So I always hate to bother Ty, but I rolled over, picked up my pen and wrote it on the pad of paper that I always sleep with and just wrote, don't forget Anne Lavelle's visit, tell Chris. So I called him in the morning. I didn't want to text. That's pretty special when your mom drops in, you know, and I shared and I said, what's going on? Why would mom drop in? Because this hadn't happened since she passed, which had been at least probably about 2 years. And I want to read to you what he said. We bought a house yesterday, literally yesterday, and our daughter is laughing all the time. I see right now I didn't call him, I texted him. I must have called him afterwards because I knew I wanted to celebrate. He said, the timing is amazing. We had several positive things transpire last week. So last night I said to Gina, what a crazy week. If I called my mom, I'd have so much to tell her. He had just said that the night before. He said, this was a really great message to get from you this morning. Don't I wish everybody's loved ones would drop in on me? And Spirit says, watch what you wish for, right? I just see in my mind's eye, Whoopi Goldberg with all the family members behind her fighting, you know, let me talk, it's my turn. But luckily we're protected from that kind of chaos and it's just perfect. On a fun note, that very morning, I went to do a reading at 9 a.m. and my client's name was Anne, just like Anne Lavelle, spelled without an E. So just a little, you got to appreciate those little God winks when that happens. So regarding that reading with Anne, before I started, I played my sign game with Brenda. If you're new to my work, she's my guide who used to be my friend. She's Lynette's dear friend. And I always ask Brenda, if I'm tuned in well, show me something that Lynette is doing so I know I'm connected and ready to work. Brenda came in and she says, you're really going to like your client today. And I thought that was so funny because I love all my clients, really. You know, but it was true. There was just something about her when this Anne came on the screen. I just felt this lift that just opened my heart and I could see why Brenda would have liked her too. But it was interesting. The sign game we played, Brenda showed me Lynette shivering, really chilly, and she was making punching motions on her phone keyboard. So I passed that along to Brenda and she immediately responded with a photo taken in that very instant. Lynette was sitting in a dentist's chair. Now, I question whether I was receiving that right, because why would Lynette be shivering in Atlanta, Georgia? She was shivering because the dentist's office was freezing. She had just asked for a blanket and she took a picture of her legs wrapped in the blanket. And she was getting so many texts, like from me, that she was punching the phone so that it would turn off all the settings and not disturb her in the dentist's office. That was just the start of what have now been a string of not just what Lynette's been doing lately, but what Lynette is doing this very moment. The next day I did a reading and Lynette was shown by Brenda petting a cat with hair flying around. I know her sister had a cat, but I had no idea if Lynette was home or not. I texted her. I said, I'm playing the sign game, getting ready to do a reading. And Brenda's showing me you petting a cat and hair flying. She said, just this second, petting my sister's cat and the hair is flying. So that just happened again this week, the most recent thing. I can't remember what it was right now, but we're really pleased at the currentness of these signs, which, you know, some of you get a little bit panicky when you hear that your loved ones see everything you're doing. Not absolutely everything. Yes, they're always available, but they do give us our privacy. Okay, they don't care about bodily functions and all of those things. They don't have to drop in on you in the shower or other times. So don't worry, please. Okay, let's see. All right. Another one, just a little more evidence. When I get through the evidence, we'll stop for a little while and do some Q&As from all of you. So if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box that's down there. So I was doing a reading. I was bringing through my client's son. I got pulled to the side where I sensed a mother. I knew she wanted to hear from her son, but I'm not going to ignore anybody else who shows up. And I said, I'm feeling a woman here who's standing where mothers stand. And she felt to me very loving, very friendly. And I always say, look, I'm not just saying this because this is a mother. Not all mothers are able to be like that. I described a little bit more of her personality. And she said, no, my mom really wasn't that loving and friendly, but maybe she's changed across the veil. This is such a huge teaching point. Yes, maybe she has changed, but my intention is describe yourself, Spirit, in a way that your loved ones recognize you. That's important, because then we could just say, yeah, she probably did, and it could be anybody. To have the highest integrity, you want to describe what they're like in the way their loved one would recognize them. Then they can show you, but I've changed. I always see that my eyes have been open symbol afterwards, but I wasn't seeing that in this case. So represent those across the veil clearly. And I said, no, that's not how we work. So let me get some more. And I got some more evidence, including I was shown a major scar on this woman's torso. I said, this is like a mother, but doesn't have to be a mother. How about mother-in-law? She said, oh my gosh, my mother-in-law had a colostomy, major scar in the abdomen, and that personality matches her much better than my mom. So you see why we stand the corner, as they say in mediumship, for the spirits. Don't just go to get a yes. If you're sensing something, there's a reason for that. And the mother-in-law came through with a specific message for my client and her son, my client's husband. So very, very important and a great lesson for all of us. Don't make it fit. I see that happen a lot with baby mediums because we want to be right. But just imagine you're the spirit on the other side and the medium makes it fit, accepts what feedback they get from their client instead of going with their heart and what they feel. And all of a sudden, they're not even talking about you at all, and it's all wrong. So don't make it fit. Okay, let's see. And then the beautiful part was after that message came through, we got back to my client's son, and he had more things to share with her. Now, I never would have guessed this, that my client was really left-brained. She didn't come across as rigid or skeptical at all, but listen to what she wrote. What a gift to connect with my precious son. Incredible, mind-blowing messages that could only be him. That's what we want as mediums. I am a vice president executive in pharma with a scientific PhD. I got goosebumps. And getting past my mind can be quite challenging. The undeniable evidence is so very, very important to me in knowing that all of this is exquisitely real with him and divinely guided. I got goosebumps again, because can you imagine if I had said, yeah, well, I guess your mom has changed across the veil. This is her, and now she just wants to love you. She would have doubted that. And we actually didn't hear from her mother. Why? Well, a reading is only so long, and we trust that who comes through is exactly who's supposed to come through. And the majority of that was hearing from her son, which is exactly what she wanted. And I know she'll meet up with mom if that's meant to be across the veil when their time comes. She could do a reading with another medium and mom could come through that time. We never know. Every reading is different and every medium receives different messages. Sometimes they overlap, which like in the case with Lisa Wilcoxon and me. So I hope that some of you who are new to this are just shaking your head at some of this evidence. How does this happen? How does this work? It's the paradox of understanding you are both human and spirit. Even when you cross the veil, we are all expressions of the one source. That's that field that we talked about in the invocation that we all share together. Beyond our stories, there's only connection. And where there's total connection, that's love. We all arise from this sea of love, as Fleetwood Mac used to say, right? We all arise from that. And yet, in arising to tell our human stories, we are autonomous. We make choices of our own, and yet always guided, always part of one team of spirits who's helping you. And this will become very clear in the discussion that's going to follow later. Okay. I think this is a good time to do a few Q&As. We've been going on for quite a while. So Bev.
Okay, we have close to 70 questions.
I don't think
Let's
we'll get
see.
to all of those tonight.
Here's one. Suzanne, how do you feel the personality of a very young baby that crossed the veil?
I don't. And that's how I know it's a very young baby. So when I have a baby, the guides across the veil show me this symbol. All right, since I'm not seeing the spirits themselves. So I get the charades, I know it's a baby, then I tune in and I feel, is there a personality here? And that's when I will say objectively to my client, I can sense that you have a young child across the veil, but they didn't live long enough to even develop a personality. And I mean, a very distinct one, of course. You know, all babies cry and all babies smile. So, but a distinct, unique personality. So that's how. Okay, another one. Bev?
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go to Lynette.
Oh,
You faked me out.
Lynette, do you have questions? No. That's Q&A for the podcast, Bev. It's just you tonight.
Oh, okay. I thought we were going to go back and forth. One from Beth. Do those across the veil have groups that they reincarnate with several times?
I know the answer that I think I know, but I'm pausing to let spirit answer through me. Oh, round and round you go, they say. Soul families that know each other for all eternity, but you do take on different roles. So yeah, that's why there's recognition in certain people, right? I know you. How do I know you? At the soul level. Okay.
Great.
Sure.
Okay. Do angels incarnate for lifetimes here on Earth?
That's the first time I've ever heard Sanaya answer in military terms. Negative.
Okay.
No, they can incarnate briefly to show up as a human person to save people in accidents and such. We've heard stories about that, but not full lifetimes. In fact, speaking of that, we have a brand new podcast program on angels called Angels Are Real that we're going to show very soon. I have really good news for all of you. We're going back to having weekly Messages of Hope podcasts. So we're going to ratchet things up a bit and get them online, and you can follow along predictably. We hope to start posting them Sundays at noon, but they'll always be available on YouTube and on the podcast channel. So you don't have to join us at Sundays at noon, but at least you'll be able to say, hey, there should be a new Messages of Hope podcast. And we're going to kick it off with this Angels Are Real program. And I'm not sure if we're going to get it out this Sunday or the next one, but we're working hard behind the scenes to make this happen for all of you. There'll be a mixture of our Q&A with Suzanne and Sanaya sessions, special sessions like on topics like angels, and then continuing with special guests. So I hope, I see some comments in the chat. We aim to please. So thanks to Bev and Lynette and the whole team that's helping make that possible. All right, let's move on here. Speaking of the shared field from which we all arise, there's no other way for me to explain this incident. I think I'm finished with stories from readings. This was a story from my life. We were checking into a campground, and the way it goes is that we always pull in and you pull off to the side. Ty stays with our motor coach, and I go in to check in and get our site assignment. So I walked into this one KOA campground. It's a chain across America, Campgrounds of America with a K, and they have cabins with a K at the campground. That's a standard joke of ours. Look, it's a cabin. So I stepped into the KOA office, and there were 3 people ahead of me. Not unusual to have people lined up at the desk. One woman was standing off to the side. There were 2 at the counter, and this woman was off to the side. So I should have said, "Are you in line? I'll just step behind you. It looks like there's a gap here." But for some reason, and anytime I put that in quotes, there's a reason, but I didn't realize it at the time, I completely mimed that thought. I looked at her and I went something like that. 2 people at the counter, you're here, I'm going to step behind you. And she looked at me and nodded and kind of laughed. And I stepped behind her. The 2 people left. She got up to the counter and I almost fell over. She was deaf. She was communicating by miming with the lady at the counter. I couldn't believe it. And I hope I got goosebumps again. I have never done that ever. And what made that happen? It's because we are connected to each other, all of us, at a level beneath this human awareness. It's called the soul. And clearly my soul met her soul and just knew, why bother talking? And we just communicated beautifully, soul to soul that way. And it came through my body that way. I hope that just gives you moments pause and realizes that your soul is meeting each other person, each other person before you even exchange words. Isn't that cool? Yeah, I love it. So we call it, some people might say that's the subconscious mind. I call it the superconscious mind, right? The mind of the soul. And it's just one mind that joins us all. I love it. That's oneness in action. All right. So I said in my 2 emails that I sent out announcing this evening's session that we were going to talk about the opposite of gratitude, and for good reason. I talked about this on the Alaska cruise. We had a good session about this. By the way, speaking of cruise, you might not have heard, or maybe you did, save the date. We had such a good time on the Alaska cruise that Life Journeys has asked me to lead a Mediterranean Odyssey next year. It's a 10-day cruise: Spain, France, Malta, Italy, Greece, and Turkey. Oh my gosh. And it's from September 19th to 29th. So you might want to just make a note. They're putting together the landing page and the registration page now, and we hope to be able to start taking registrations a month from now. And, this is part of the reason why I'm ratcheting up the podcasts every week again, because these cruises are big ticket items, and I recognize that not everybody can afford that. So I want to balance that by giving you more free things. And that would be the weekly sharing in the podcast. So if it's on your bucket list to do that, I hope you can join us. 14 hours of the Awaken Way teachings on that cruise next year. Meanwhile, on the cruise this time, we discuss gratitude, as many of you know, is the fastest way to come into a coherent state, to turn up your light by feeling gratitude in your heart, bringing to mind 1, 2, 3 things that you're grateful for right now. There is always something to be grateful for. When you do that, you are so much more able to connect with higher consciousness. If you want to connect across the veil, get instant answers from spirit, go to gratitude first. And it just drops you into the state where your brain and your heart are operating together. And that's really helpful for your energy field, all of your cells, everything in your body and your multiple bodies, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, come into resonance just by thinking about gratitude. Probably one of the reasons we love these programs so much, because I feel so much gratitude to all of you for being part of this community. And my team, I get to look at them on the camera there, so on the screen. Meanwhile, what is the opposite of gratitude? Complaining. Complaining. And complaining is a habit, a human habit. And once you start noticing, you can stop complaining. I love sharing with you now a definition for complaining. I don't want to get it wrong, so I just glanced down. Objecting to reality in a way that isn't helpful. You might want to write that down. It's such a perfect definition, and I wish I could remember where I saw it, but when I did, it was like, wow, that's exactly right. I mean, we can comment on reality. And in my story that I'm going to share here shortly, where I lost it, I was complaining about things in my life. I was objecting to reality as it was. And I don't know if it was helpful or not, but you can tell when it isn't helpful. Complaining can feel good because it's kind of like gossip, but it absolutely has an energy that is equal and opposite to gratitude. So if gratitude brings you into a state of coherence, what do you think complaining does to us? Takes us into a state of separation, takes us into only human mode, takes us into a state of restriction, limitation, and disharmony, out of alignment with the soul. That's why we want to pay attention, not to be saints. I mean, we're human and we have reason to object sometimes to reality. But this spiritual path is about accepting what is happening, seeing it from the soul's perspective, saying, isn't that interesting? And then seeing if there is a more harmonious way to react to what we're dealing with. So I hope you like that definition. Those on the cruise, when I shared it, really took it to heart. Those of you who were with us may remember day 1 of the workshops. The second workshop of the day, we got into some choppy seas. I don't know if this will happen in the Mediterranean, but we were off the Pacific coast, out in open ocean water, and it was rough. And there I am on the stage, and the stage is rocking. I was like an ice skater, but I've spent years on a sailboat, and I'm really good at maintaining stability on a moving stage. People were kind of impressed. It was, I'm sure it was amusing to watch, but it was also a little uncomfortable to watch because people were getting a little nauseous. And I ran into a woman in the dining room the next night, and I have to share with you what she said to me. She said, Suzanne, I was so impressed with how you slid around the stage. I went back to my cabin and threw up, but I'm not complaining. So she really took the teaching to heart, right? It was just an objective fact. And I'm happy to state the rest of the cruise was very smooth, and nobody else got sick, I don't think. not with seasickness. So here is a really great experiment or even homework. How long can you go without complaining? Just do it out of self-interest to see if it's your habit. We can all set the intention right now together. I love to do group intentions. Why do we even want to? Because when you're aware of your thoughts, your behaviors, your words, that has to come from a higher level because you're observing yourself. You're keeping tabs on yourself. And why would we want to do that? because the higher our vibration, the more often we're in a coherent state. Spirit sees us, can get their guidance and their messages through to us, and our loved ones across the veil can get through to us. If that's not a goal to achieve, I don't know what is. And that's why I try to notice anytime I'm out of sorts, off balance, complaining. All right, so let's set an intention here. You can close your eyes if you want, just to solidify it, and may my words be your words as we move our awareness to the heart and say, Spirit, I love this new definition of complaining, objecting to reality as it is in a way that isn't helpful. I would like to notice reality, to allow it and flow with it, and to come up with ways of dealing with reality in a way that is helpful. I'm setting the intention now to notice when I fall into the very human habit of complaining and up-leveling that to eventually find gratitude in all that is. Thank you so much. All right. Again, it's kind of long-winded. Anytime you set an intention, it doesn't have to be like that. It can just be short and sweet. Hey, I'm going to notice when I'm complaining. All right. Good stuff. All right. So let me do maybe 2-3 questions, and then we'll get on to the main story of the evening about how I became a lunatic last month and lost it. Bev, a couple questions?
Okay. Oh, I knew I saw one I wanted to ask here. It's anonymous, but how can we not be afraid of dying if in our life review we'll experience the pain that we caused others? I have so many regrets about pain that I've caused others.
Wow, that is a good one. Good answer from Spirit, too. They just gave it to me in a burst here. Your task now is self-forgiveness. And self-forgiveness is understanding that humans learn by trial and error. We do the best we can, and once we recognize when we've made mistakes, we set the intention not to make those mistakes again. When you find self-forgiveness, you take that with you across the veil. You won't revert to the state you might have been in 1 minute ago before you understood that it's okay, that you were very human. You'll get across the veil and you'll say, I made a lot of mistakes, but I have forgiven myself, and I'm okay with watching it now. You've already relived that pain enough. Let me check. No, you will not have to relive it again. Okay? Once you forgive yourself for that. Beautiful question.
Wow.
Bev, by the way, forgive me because I wasn't seeing the screen correctly. I had to pin myself, and I'm afraid that in the video you won't show up. And I always love when people see you too, but they'll hear you, but may not see you. Okay.
Okay. Have you ever become aware of a situation when a grandparent reincarnated to become the grandchild? Could reincarnation happen that quickly?
I'm not recalling. There may have been one. I'm seeing a 1 go up. So there was one situation like that. I have had children who passed who came back as a grandchild. It can definitely happen that quickly. Yes. Yeah. Simple answer. I'm going to just pop out of the pin thing here and see what happens if I don't pin myself. It's not even a choice. Okay. How about one more question, Beth?
Okay, how can we let go of our attachment and worry for our grown children?
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely part of the spiritual path, is coming to understand that all beings are souls who are here on their own path. So the Spirit says it is something that you will likely not ever completely let go of, because that is part of the human condition, and that heart connection. You will always, from your love, want to help them and keep them from harm. So they say it's a matter of reconditioning and repatterning the thoughts and finding keywords that will help you. Their own path. I love them so much that I'm going to allow them to learn from their trial and error and their ups and downs, just as I have. Okay. All righty. Good stuff. All right. So on to the next story. This is the big story that I wanted to share with you, with lots of lessons. And as always, when I share my personal stories, please put it into how this could affect, how this relates to you. That's what I tried to do, to yeah, just like the last question, to help you avoid some of the painful lessons that I did, just to make it a little less painful, because you're going to ultimately have your own lessons in other regards. So if I can lessen your pain in this regard a little bit and help you grow, then that's just the way it works, right? So I've had a lot of changes in my life recently. That cruise was a really big deal, and we got back from there and moved into this house, which is now our summer house, with no break whatsoever. And then I had the new book contract from Hay House. That book, The Awakened Way, Making the Shift to a Divinely Guided Life, comes out April 24th. So hopefully you'll be on my email list and we'll know when we can pre-order that. But all of the assignments related to that and working with editors just led to very, very busy time the past month. And then traveling down to Denver to do 2 live events in the midst of all of that before coming back up here. The one word that kept coming up in my mind was turmoil. And even Lynette would say to me, Suzanne, you've had a lot of turmoil in your life lately. So that was the word of the month every day. And I could feel the stress. I was regularly clearing my chakras, which I hope all of you get in the habit of doing when you notice you're a little stressed. And I was getting kind of snitty, definitely on the inside, but it was coming out a little bit, probably with Ty. If he were here, he'd say not a little bit, but I'm very, very much aware of how I react to others. So hopefully it wasn't too bad. But I actually said out loud, I'm tired of all this turmoil. I wasn't saying it to Ty, to Spirit. I was saying it to Ty as we were sitting in the car with having the tires on the bus changed. We had to spend days sitting in the car while our home on the road was being fixed in multiple ways. So I just really vented. I'm tired of all this turmoil. So that should have been an indicator right there. Because what is that? It's a complaint, right? Was it helpful? Well, it did let off some steam. And I apologized immediately to Ty for venting, but that was the situation. So in the midst of all this turmoil, we're on our way to Denver and we're in the motor coach and we're making the bed. And as I'm shoving the bedspread down between the bed and the fixed nightstand, something sharp was in there and it cut me on the index finger right here, took off several layers of skin, super painful, and I put a Band-Aid on it. Well, let me tell you, I tried 3 different brands and I have yet to find a Band-Aid that stays on when you wash your hands. I have never changed Band-Aids so many times in 1 week. And I noticed the darn thing just wasn't healing. And it was just a real pain and it kept catching my attention. So remember that came up because it becomes quite significant in this story. So we finished the 2 events in Denver, and I'm happy to say that chakra clearing and the beautiful energy from the crowd helped those to go very well. Lovely, lovely session and a beautiful community of people who came out, and maybe some of you were there, had a great time in Denver. But instead of heading right back here to Idaho, we decided to spend a couple of nights at the campground at the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, just south of Denver. It is a beautiful place where we've stayed in the past. Very, very spread out, a huge campus. So I taught at the Naval Academy. If I would go out for a run at lunchtime, because you're required to exercise in the military, you could run all the way around the campus, which they called the yard, and maybe cover a few miles. So it's a very self-contained campus. To put things in perspective, the Air Force Academy has 30 miles of mountain bike trails in the woods on the grounds of the Air Force Academy, let alone roads. It is vast and enormous. So there we are at the campground. We arrived and I hadn't gotten to work out in 2 days. I work out every day. So we're now the third day. And I said to Ty, I got to go to the gym on base. I haven't lifted weights in a couple weeks. I want to go to the gym. And he said, okay. And we were going to have dinner that evening at the home of Tracy Susie. Some of you may remember I've told the story of Tracy and her son, Eamon, who has dropped in on me multiple times from across the veil. So this was a big deal. We didn't want to be late, but I had plenty of time, 2 hours until we had to leave to get on the road to drive to Tracy's house. So Ty wanted to stay back with the dogs, and I head from the campground in the car to the gym, which I had a basic idea where it was, but it had been a few years since I'd been there. Well, it turns out this is a Friday, and they have a Friday football game going on at the Air Force Academy, visiting college team coming in. They had put up orange cones on every road on the entire campus. I'm talking thousands of cones. And they had rent-a-guards, rent-a-traffic cops. I don't know what you want to call them, but they were not Air Force personnel at all. Kind of disconcerting to go to every corner on the base and see these 18 or 20-year-old, I can call them kids from my viewpoint, directing traffic, and some of them with purple hair. On a military base, it was a little jarring. That's not a judgment. That's just, wow, that's different. So I would come up to an intersection and I'd say, I'm trying to go that way to get to the gym. And they'd say, no, you can't go that way. It's blocked. Everywhere I went, the route was blocked. Now, I'm going to just show you real quickly, then I'm going to close up this out. Just to give you an idea of how big this is, because I want you to know it takes a lot to get me this off balance. This is a map of the Air Force Academy grounds. Here in orange is the campground. I'm trying to get over here to yellow. That's probably the gym. That's probably 5 miles. This is the North Gate, NG. This is the South Gate. That's about 7 miles. That's a long way. So the football stadium is right here. I'm trying to just get past here, and I couldn't. They turned me around. I go back to the North Gate. I had to go outside the gate, turn around, show my ID to get back on the gate, come back in, and try to go back this way. They turned me around again. I went out the North Gate twice and showed my ID, and finally went way up here. I'm traveling like half an hour to get to this silly little gym, okay? So I can feel the frustration growing, but I have tools, right? I'm breathing deeply. I know I'm going to the gym, but I can tell I'm getting a little off balance. So I think I'm in the vicinity of the gym. I asked this young woman walking around, is the gym on the other side of this building? She said, yeah. And I said, should I park here or should I drive down there? I couldn't see it. She said, no, you can park here. So I parked there, get out, I start walking. It was a 1/3 of a mile walk. I don't know what she was thinking, but I measured it on the way back. By the time I realized how far the gym was, I'm halfway there, and I said, I might as well go. I get to the gym door. I reach into my pocket, and I realize I have, in showing my ID card twice at the North Gate, I have dropped it on the floor of the car. I have left my ID card a 1/3 of a mile away. And sometimes they card you when you go in a gym, sometimes they don't. I decided I'm just going to barge past the desk. And if anybody asks me, then I'll deal with it. But I'm going to look like I know what I'm doing. And I just marched straight into that gym and nobody even stopped me. So, okay. I mean, I had every right to be there, but I just didn't have my card on me. So I'm happy to report I had a good 20-minute workout, but I have taken 40 minutes to get 5 miles. So now I have my wah back, as we say, right? I've had a good workout, but it was abbreviated, only 20 minutes, because I'm looking at my watch thinking I have to shower. I have to get dressed to go to Tracy's house. I called Ty and I'm updating him. So I leave the gym and I go down the hill and, of course, more orange cones. So I now end up going out the South Gate. I come back in and I say, I'll try a different route. I realized I was not tuning into my guides. I was not asking them what to do. But at this point, it's a little late. And here's where everything turned sour because I wasn't asking for guidance. I finally said, I come to these cones. And I said to the rent-a gate guards, I'm just trying to go that way. They said, no, you have to go this way. Well, now I'm turning up into the stadium parking lot where all the routes are mud paths by the hundreds of cars that are at a football game, a college football game. You can picture this, right? We have people tailgating, parties, people walking to the stadium. People are driving 2 miles an hour, and I'm in that line going the opposite direction from the campground. And I come up to another spot, and here are these 3 rent-a guards. And I rolled, I don't want to say it out loud what I really said. I rolled down my window, and they looked at me and said, and I said, I'm trying to get to the campground back there. And I said, really nasty, how the F am I supposed to get there? They looked utterly shocked. And then they started giggling because here they're like 20 years old and I'm this 60-something that could be their grandmother, and I just dropped an F-bomb on them. And they said, well, at this point, your only choice is to go up the hill. And I said, I've already been there. And they said, well, just go that way and find your way out of there. It was ridiculous. So now I've realized I have to behave. If I act like this again, they're going to throw me in the brig. I'm on a military base, okay? So I finally get out of the stadium parking lot, pop onto this road, and have no choice but to go way up the mountain behind the whole Air Force Academy. And suddenly I see ahead of me a guard shack in the middle of the base. It's clearly guarding a housing development on base. I can't believe they had a guard just for the housing development, probably to keep all the lunatics from the football game out of there. I see this young airman start walking out. I know he's going to say, excuse me, you can't come in here. You have to turn back. And there's no way I'm going back through that stadium. So decorum would say you act respectful. I picked up my ID card. He comes to the window and aware that he's wearing a gun. I shove my ID card in his face just so he can see that I'm not a lunatic. And I looked at him and I said, I am in Air Force Academy hell. I am trying to get to the campground and there are 1,000 cones. And then I softened and from my heart, I said, you have to help me. And that's what made the difference right there. And he looked at me and he said, ma'am, welcome to my world. He clearly knew that it was ridiculous that they have blocked off every road. And then this sweet young guy pulls out his iPhone, pulls up Google Maps with an aerial of all the roads on that map that I showed you earlier. In fact, it's still flashing at me. So I'm going to escape out of here for a second and shut down PowerPoint so it will stop disturbing me. I don't need it anymore. There we go. And he proceeded to show me how to get back. And I know you've all been there. I'm not familiar with the roads, but he's saying, you see here, you go like 3 miles, then you turn right, and I want you to turn left here, and then you're going to go right here and then left here. And I lost him after the first 2 turns. And this is when I realized I have to rely on spirit for this, or I'm never going to get back there. And so I would come up to an intersection and just tune in and say, which way? Which way? And I wasn't sure because I was so off balance if I was going the right way, but soon I ended back on that one road where I'd gone back and forth several times. I came up to the final intersection where the campground was, blocked off with 3 rent-a-guards there, and they came up to the window and I looked at them and I said, I'm staying at the campground. I have to get home. And you know what they said? Oh, of course. They lifted the cone and just let me through. It was that moment where you wanted to say, and why did nobody say that earlier? Because I had to go through that whole thing. I had to have that lesson. I had to lose it a little bit. And it was when I realized that that's all any of us are trying to do in this life full of turmoil. Get home to the heart, back in balance. I got home to the bus is my home when we're on the road. I got home, I had 5 minutes. I walked in the door. I'm smiling at Ty, one of those looks. He's smiling at me. I said, give me 5 minutes, quick shower, call Tracy. We might be a little late. We were 1 minute late, but it took me 2 hours for a 20-minute workout. So then you have a talk with Spirit the next day and say, what was I missing? What did I need to learn? And this is where all the lessons come in. I know you can all relate, and I know that that was a long story, but I hope it was at least entertaining. Okay, so let me see, because I had a conversation with Joy about this, and I want to share it with you verbatim how that went, because the teaching is phenomenal. Let me see. What I saw immediately in meditation was, yes, I've grown a lot. Yes, I pay attention when I'm snarky or say things that I don't want to say. But having been that military officer for 20 years and being a Leo, I, like many of us, can be kind of willful and headstrong. When I make my mind up about something, a lot of times that takes over soul's awareness. That's just being very human. And we may think we have a very valid goal. It could be a spiritual goal. Well, this is what I'm going to do. Once you stop flowing and set your eyes on a goal, you may not be supposed to go directly there. You may have to flow with the winds because of other people's choices. So it's okay to have goals, but when you're headstrong or set your mind on one task, you can miss the guidance. So I don't know if there are any of us that are not willful. It's part of the human condition to have free will. But I feel that with awareness, we can take a look at ourselves and say, does that keep me so focused on one task that it's easy enough to not want to listen to others who give you advice? Who wants to be told what to do? That's a human thing. But to not listen to the guidance from Spirit, that's a totally different thing. I was so focused on getting to the gym and then getting home on time, I couldn't even hear them until I finally went into the heart and said, help me out here, to that airman. And then I had to rely on Spirit. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I had no GPS signal. We are up in the mountains and AT&T is not strong there. I could not rely on my phone. Oh, like I just now realized the regular GPS was not working and my inner GPS was not working. How perfect is that? Talk about a setup from Spirit to learn. All right. So then the next 3 days, we spend more time sitting in the car while the bus is being worked on. We had the dogs with us, so we couldn't leave them in the car. So we just sit there. I had a lot of time to catch up on work and I'll do some reading. So imagine my surprise when I pick up a book on my Kindle that I haven't read in quite some time. And what's on the next page? The author's talking about turmoil, the word of the month. And it's that author that then goes and talks about being willful and headstrong. You can't make these kinds of things up. Spirit puts things in your mind. We're set up for certain circumstances. I think if I remember correctly, we were supposed to get to the Air Force Academy a day earlier. If we had, I would have had my workout, but no, we arrived on the day of the football game. So I just see it all as a great big opportunity for learning. So again, it comes back to learning to flow instead of setting goals. This is a teaching we've shared all along, my whole team. If you find yourself hitting walls, you're not listening. If you find yourself hitting walls, you probably have another route. There's another way to go around. So walls are actually good things if we're alert enough and aware enough to notice when they pop up. So I sit down in meditation, and here is my conversation with Joy, my word for source, that ensued. I said, oh, Joy, when I type this out as it happens, by the way, just like typing the Daily Way messages. Joy, when I don't think I have to do it all, you even direct my eyes where to look, and more importantly, where not to look, such as at my inbox right now. What am I talking about? I type my conversations with Joy. I type the Daily Way messages in an email to myself. I send it to myself, then I copy and paste it into the website, which is more difficult than an email. So I had noticed that when I open up an email, my eye would naturally fall on my inbox. And what happens? You get snagged. Oh, there's an answer from somebody. Pulled me right out of meditation. That day when I went to ask Joy specific questions, I felt my eyes grabbed and I heard, don't look at your inbox. So we're even guided moment by moment if we're aware enough to flow. So Joy answered, of course, that is how it works. And I said, it's funny, Joy, I refer to you as a you, but I'm knowing now that you are the wholeness of all of us, the web, and yet it's okay to call you by a name like Joy. And the reply was, why not? So then I was given insights that I need to surrender being the aide. Remember, I was the aide to the chairman. I'm still carrying around aide traits. I was shown that I can let my guide be my aide. And then Joy showed me that actually it's best, now note this, when we don't ask our guides to help us, when we don't see them as aides, but see them as companions with a higher perspective who are flowing with us instead of pushing or guiding us. This is such a subtle difference that I had never felt before, but I've been working with this concept for the past 2 to 3 weeks, and it's phenomenal. Instead of saying, you know, oh, Boris, I need you to help me, I need you to do this, I tune in and I feel one with my guides, and I simply know what we are doing together, because their guidance is like a flow. It is a subtle difference, but huge. I hope somebody wrote in the chat there, yeah, we are co-creators. That's absolutely it. And our guides learn from us as well. So we can still ask them to help us, but what if we made a pact with our guides to flow with them? And I said to Joy that I really like this concept of no aids anymore. And Joy said to me, are you not still having nightmares about your time as an aide? And I absolutely do have recurring nightmares about screwing up that job. So maybe those will go away now that I no longer feel like I have to guide and direct things. And I know that my guides are, you know, it's a deceptive term, they're guiding us, but if we flow with them as partners, always holding them in awareness that they have that higher perspective, it's a beautiful relationship to get in, and it helps you to see yourself as part of the wholeness. Instead of separate you down here and your guides are separate here and source is up here, life, love in full expression, is flowing as all of us. So I've even stopped even thinking of myself in terms of my name in the past few weeks. This is simply life flowing. And my guides are life flowing. Love in full expression. That's what you are. You are love in full expression, bursting forth from source, flowing forth. And it's when we say, I'm going to go to the gym now, no matter what, or I'm going to go this way, I'm going to turn left, even though there's a barrier there, that's when we hit the walls. If we drop our headstrong willfulness and just become, without a story, life flowing, I'm excited to see how that works for you, because it has taken me to a whole new level. They said, then why do you think you finally saw a spirit's face? Didn't I tell you they've told me they hold back certain things so we can learn lessons along the way? We're always, always, always clearing out anything that's holding us in sense of separation. Yes, we are separate, autonomous human beings, but we are also part of the wholeness, part of the flow. And the more we can spend time in that flow, being the flow, why wouldn't then readings and connections with your loved ones across the veil flow more freely? You see? So set the goal to be aware of when you have to do it your way, when you're feeling separate and feel like somebody has to guide you, instead of aiming to get to that place where you just know what's next. You know which way to turn. Let me keep reading, they say, what happened in that conversation. So I said, instead of me being in a guide-human relationship, we're all just flowing together. And when I tune in, the flow just happens. And Joyce said, very good discernment. I said, headstrong, willful. Did I choose to be born a Leo so that I could work on surrendering these innately Leo traits? They served me well in the military. And Joy then said, or so you think, do you not still have nightmares? And I said, wow, I was caught up in it. And Joy said, as are legions of warring factions, thus the need for generals and their aides. That's huge. So it's not just pointing the finger at the military, but at politicians, at anybody who feels separate from each other. We will never learn to flow together as long as we stay in only human mode. We are absolutely human. We'll have these human reactions, but it's that learning to shift and see the wholeness that puts us in a whole new perspective and state of mind. So I said, wow, and if we all just flow? And Joy said, try it. I said, I'm so ready to. These are deep ruts to climb out of, just like in the Air Force Academy parking lot. You see the symbolism there? The road I got stuck on when I got turned into the parking lot was not even a road. They were just muddy ruts by all these people driving off the path. Wow. So I said, I'm ready to just climb out of these ruts. And Joy said, this is huge. Only if you think they are still there. Only if you go back to them. What if you tread a completely new path, new skin? Where's my little cut on my finger? And all of a sudden, when Joy said new skin, I thought about the wound on my finger that was taking so long to heal, so much longer than ever before. And I said, no more pointing my fingers at others. This is us. This is all of us. And that word turmoil coming up in the book, it's been my word of the day for several weeks, and I was resisting all of the turmoil, rejecting it. And Joy said, instead of allowing and flowing, if you will listen. And I said, but it's not just a voice, right? It's a knowing which way the flow is going to be easiest. I am the water. And Joy said, the source river flowing from the headwaters, trust it. I said, I will trust the team as well. All the guys, you all have a team in spirit. Help me with this concept of not so much guiding me as showing me the way through subtleties, but we must attune. And Joy said, aha. Now, if you joined us last month, you heard all about taking frequent aha moments. And I completely forgot to do it at the Air Force Academy, where you stop and you align with higher self by taking a deep breath. And I didn't stop a single time in that 2 hours and take a deep breath. Aha. Align. H stands for harmonize. How do you harmonize? What's the fastest way? Gratitude instead of complaining. And then attune. Tune in. And just feel. And just know what is the next step. So many people say, I don't hear my guides. I hear right now, ding, ding, ding. You don't have to hear. You don't have to see an image. When you allow yourself to flow, when you trust the source waters and know that you are part of that wholeness. You are to drop in the river, and the river can't exist without the drops. The river is the accumulation of the drops, all of these beings forming the expressions of that one source river. When you stop trying to do it yourself and align, harmonize, and attune, you suddenly just know. You don't need a guide to talk to you like a human. You don't need human images. You just follow your heart and flow. It works. Set the intention and just try it. Let's see. I said, moment by moment, it's not a break that the self decides to take or not, these aha moments. It becomes a habit. And I said, this is the awakened way. I'm open to living from this state of wholeness at all times. So see, I'm setting my intention right in the meditation, a nice practice to get into. I'm open to living from this state of wholeness at all times with new skin, fearless, flowing in a state of unity consciousness. Boy, that feels good. Truly like dancing. It's everything I've been teaching, but you've shown me in some pretty painful ways lately that I was still in aid mode much of the time. And Joy said, could have been much more painful. Now you're ready to go to the next level. Huh. And I said, and I know you will relate to this, part of me wanted to skip a grade or two just then. But I sense that flow is uninterrupted and doesn't skip. Wow. And Joyce said, very good. And I said, but it definitely gets better and better, so onward we go. And Joy said, the path of least resistance. And I said, whoa, that's it. Thank you. I had asked for a phrase or a word to help me remember all this. May I live by this phrase until it becomes my way of life more fully. And I'm so grateful that all who are most helpful due to their awareness of how it all works and fits together, meaning the guides, are flowing with me. So I hope, this is the way I talk to my team in spirit, how I talk to Joy in meditation. Talk however is comfortable to you. Go into the silence and know you're not just talking to your smaller self, but you're definitely talking to your higher self and the one self with a capital S. And have these conversations, engage higher consciousness and see what wisdom comes for you as well. It may not sound anything like my conversations. That's the way mine has unfolded with Sanaya over the years, but have the conversations. You cannot solve any of your challenges at the same level from which they arose, says Einstein, right? So we go higher, we shift higher. And Joy said, there is great strength in togetherness, wholeness, bonding. And I said, thank you. And of course, this session ended with, you are so very loved. So I hope that's helpful. There's still more here. So when you are having to do it your way, what if you just flow with your inner GPS? And when it's not working, it's because you're out in the wilderness. That's a biblical term, isn't it? Right? We go out in the wilderness and get a little lost when we're just trying to get home. And when we take these aha moments, we find our way home. And it is through the heart with the deep breaths. And by the way, I remember saying, Ty got really upset about something recently. And I said, honey, please, for everybody's sake, take a deep breath. And this is what he did. That doesn't do it. So it should always be, everybody, a slow, long, deep breath to calm down and align and harmonize and then attune. All right. So the wound on my finger, then I even saw what a great metaphor that was. How many people cut their finger making a bed, right? Of course, it was in an RV, which is different, but it was kind of like you made your bed, you cut your finger, now deal with it, right? You made your bed, now lie in it. So I needed to learn to trust the force that heals wounds. Why wasn't it healing? It was not in balance. My whole body wasn't cooperating with life, love in full expression. It just stayed open. So I said, all right, I need a way to integrate this new teaching into my life. I don't want to lose this new rut that I'm forming. If I can get out of that rut that quickly, we need new patterns. I don't want to see my guides as here and me here. I want to see us as a team flowing. I don't want to refer to myself even as Suzanne anymore. I want to be life flowing. And I needed a reminder. Well, what could be a better reminder than an open cut that I don't want to hit and reopen? And the Band-Aids kept falling off, so I left them off. And so for 3 days, I had to be super careful. Every single action I took, am I going to bang my finger? It was phenomenally helpful. And it reminded me of my days in the Navy when we had to wear our summer white uniform. Anybody who's ever worn white pants or a white skirt and a white shirt and white shoes all day long at work and getting to work knows that you don't take a step without being aware of your surroundings. Am I going to get dirty? Am I going to sit on something dirty? Am I going to brush up against something? Am I going to drop something on my clothes? It's ridiculous for years to wear that uniform and have to be looking good all the time. So I couldn't put on a white uniform and be cautious. So I just kept that Band-Aid off. And it was what I teach everybody. Step, pause, attune, step, attune. So in pausing to make sure I'm not about to, open something and bang my finger or brush up against something and reopen that wound, I was very careful and respectful of that cut. Yet every pause, I'm flowing. What's the next move? Where do I turn from here? Am I aligned? Am I attuned? And it became a dance. It helped me become life flowing. And now I'm just suddenly understanding why I'm getting such instantaneous signs from Brenda of what Lynette's doing, why the readings are flowing so beautifully. Can you see how this could help you in your life? What can you use in your life to pay attention? Am I flowing? Am I knowing what the next step is instead of having to guess, having to ask, having to listen? That works. It has really worked beautifully for me for 12 years. My life has expanded so much being guided and knowing my team is here. And your guides will cooperate with you as long as you ask. They always will. But what if you're done with that rut, as good as it's been, and it's time now to start flowing in wholeness as part of one, as David Bohm, the physicist, used to say, undivided wholeness in flowing motion. That's life. Love in full expression, and you're part of it. That same flow, that same force, it's what causes you to look up at the clock and see it's 11:11 or it's 3:33. All those numbers are a license plate that grabs your attention. You're flowing when that happens. That's why we celebrate angel numbers, right? It's just an indication that you could have looked up at any time, a minute earlier, a minute later, but the flow caused you to look up then. You'll get signs left and right once you start flowing even more. So the benefits of flow, the turmoil doesn't knock you off balance. Does it mean life is the same? Oh my God, no. I came back here to Idaho and life is crazier than I've ever known it, but I'm not calling it turmoil anymore. I'm flowing with it. We got a beautiful Daily Way message earlier this week about tennis players who are there in the flow. And when they go out to practice, some machine is lobbing or some partner is lobbing one ball after another, and they just hit it. They're in the flow. And that was the imagery Spirit gives to us, to you now, to see that life is still going to throw things at you, maybe one thing after another. But when you flow with Spirit, you really are not given more than you can handle. unless you're not listening and you take on more than you need. Then that's because you're not listening. But otherwise, just flow with it. And then you'll know when to say no. I've said no to 2 offers this week. And I said to people, I try to say yes to everything, but I'm listening. And it would put me over the top if I said yes. So we're just flowing. In fact, I flew to Kansas in the midst of all this last week and did a workshop. As I stepped up onto the podium at Unity of Lawrence, Kansas, one of my notes flew out of my hand, a handout I had for somebody, and my hand went out and caught it like that. And several people were watching, and they and I both went, whoa, good catch. It was one of those impossible human things. It was just like, yep, we're flowing. So I hope this has given you ideas of how you might change course a little bit if you're feeling that in the flow. So let's see if I've missed any of the main teaching points here. Let me look at my notes. The guide said you're doing well. Oh, I'm so glad they had me look, because this is one of the best. Hang on a sec. Oh, this was unbelievable to me. So I was 1 day into this new practice of flowing. I have the Band-Aid off my finger, right? I'm being very careful. We're still on the Air Force Academy grounds. I don't even think Beverly Lynette loaded this story because I wanted to save it for now. It was so phenomenally a setup from Spirit. So I'm in this new practice of letting the new skin grow, right? We're out for an exercise walk. We start this app that measures if we've walked our 3 miles or not. And I got to thinking, as my mind is wandering, about a request I had sent to someone asking them to do something for me. And I hadn't heard back from them yet. So part of me is saying, just flow with it. They'll get back to you. Let it unfold. But that rut that was still lingering, I probably had one wheel still in the rut, wanted to send an email and say, are you on that? Are you going to get back to me about that? Do you have that yet? So because I still had that one wheel in the rut, I reached for my phone to on the spot type a text. I looked down at the app that measures the distance, and we had gone 1.11 miles. That made me chuckle a little, like catch your attention, snag you. Suddenly, my music on the phone starts. I was walking with Ty, so I didn't have headphones on. We're talking to each other or just thinking. My music on the phone starts on its own, mid-song, with a song I had not even been listening to and hadn't listened to in forever. Are you ready? It's Jennifer Nettles. And these are the lyrics that came out in that exact moment as I'm ready to be controlling. She says, my will is getting stronger, and I think I know just what I have to do. That was the lyrics. I'd sing it to you, but I'd hurt your ears. You can't make this stuff up. How did Spirit pull that right out of my phone right then? I started cracking up, and I did not send that text. And by the time we got back from the walk, the thing I had been looking for was in my inbox, of course, right? So we can sometimes be our own biggest obstacles. Certainly our will is. So again, may our lessons be as painless as possible. Mine could have been much worse if I had blasted through a barrier and ended up in the brig. Instead, it ended up being a whole evening's entertainment and lesson, I hope. Aha moments for all of you. So good stuff. Wow. We don't usually have evenings that are like one topic, but I think that's multiple ones in there and really addresses our humanity and the importance of seeing ourselves in our wholeness as well. Worth going back over a couple times maybe for some things we could all use. So I did promise you we'd do a group healing session. We found this to be very, very helpful and healing for everybody concerned. If you're new to this, you're going to love it. I hope you will feel the energy. Our task is to realize that we are part of that flow, and that healing energy will flow through us and out to others when we set the intention to do that. So you don't have to heal anybody. Just be the instrument for healing to take place through your intention. And if you need healing, take your worries off yourself and just accept the energy that's coming to all of us, because we're sending it to each other. And let's also send it outward to anybody who needs it. I, for one, want to again bring Beth Passacarnis into awareness, and anybody else who's facing very big challenges, bigger than the normal tennis balls that are thrown at us, right? So while we're all sending healing energy, I'm going to be attuning to my guide Sanaya and ask them to step in even closer than they have been, and we'll see what message they have for us. I don't have a clue what they could add to what we just talked about this evening, but I know they're here. They've twitched my lip a couple times. They'll talk, and then we'll just wrap this all up. So for now, with the intention of sending healing to each other, our loved ones, and the world, would you join me in that, please? Good evening. We wish you to continue sending the healing energy. If you could see the waves that are emanating from each of you, you would understand what a difference you do indeed make, not only for each other, but within your own energetic field. By healing others, you are healing yourself. Understand as well that each of you is a healer in your own right. You are being given the analogy of tennis balls being thrown your way, and you do have an expression that life throws you for a loop. That is life, dear friends. It has its innate ups and downs. It is when you try to control those, disassembling the roller coaster that you willingly boarded at the station when born into this life, disassembling it beam by beam, that you enter what you would understand as a dangerous time, but we do not wish to instill fear in you, only the danger of losing even more awareness of who you are. It is in sitting in the energy of these group gatherings that you experience the awareness, the remembrance. Ah, yes, I am the light. I at times have become a bit blinded to the light within me, but I feel it stirring within, and it feels so delicious. I wish to go forth and shine this light. And then life throws a curveball at you, does it not? Something you did not see coming, such as a serious diagnosis, the passing of a loved one, the losing of a job. We could go on, but you are well familiar with all of these occurrences, which could easily drag down the rarefied energy which you have helped to co-create this evening. We are simply trying to get you to the place, the state where you say, ah, yes, this is life flowing just because it is uncomfortable, just because it may be painful due to wearing a physical body for a while, does not mean you need give it a label such as bad or negative. It is life flowing. You have learned quite a bit this evening, and we are grateful for this one, for being willing to be our whipping post, as you might understand it. But we wish to tell you that just because you begin to flow with your team and spirit does not mean that life will no longer have its ups and downs. That will always be part of life, but you will flow, and you may scream a bit as you go over the precipice and head into the abyss. But what goes down most definitely does come back up again. And when you get in the flow, you will feel that motion. You will know that you are part of the duality of human life with its ever ongoing ups and downs, never-ending cycles of back and forth, up and down, what you call good and bad, positive and negative. It is part of love in full expression. Do not forget this. But as you learn to flow with it, you maintain the peace, the equanimity, the balance, and therefore the awareness, I am love in full expression. You may forget it when the balls come at you one after another, but that light is always within, and the more you follow through on your intention to not wound yourself any more than is necessary for the learning and the growth, you will experience this peace that passes all understanding. You will see the growth within yourself as you no longer are so knocked off balance, as you experience greater connection with each other, with those across the veil, and most importantly, with yourself. And therein lies the key to self-forgiveness. I may have forgotten for a while who I am, but now that I remember, I find the ability to love myself as much as others. What a blessing this is. You all are a blessing to us, for you are our change makers. If we may flow with you a bit more, it is our honor. We thank you for your attendance this evening. Please know, always and forever, you are so very loved. Wow. And I am absolutely thrilled to report this is the first time ever I don't have that full headache that I have at the end of these sessions. Wow. And they say it's the result of flow. So you may call me Suzanne, or you can call me, hey you, but I am just like you, life flowing. And it's been my total joy to flow with you this evening. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. No, they say all is well. I love you all so much. I hope you gleaned something from all of that. And let's thank again, Bev and Lynette. And I hope to see you back here next month. And I look forward to the day when our paths cross in person. Ultimately, we'll meet up across the veil. Until then, be well. Good night.